Here we are between two sprints. I'm your host, Matt Thomas, joined with Adam Rolfe, aka Speed Farm, and our guest of honor today, Antheos Spiteri. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate to be with you guys. It's nice to share some insights over here. And yeah, as Matt said, I'm a performance coach based in Malta, and I really love 1080s. In fact, I have two of them. I have the Sprint 2 and the 1080 cable, which was the first in Europe as well. And yeah, practically I coach football players and love lots of data metrics. So I abuse the hell out of the 1080 app to get obviously insightful data to obviously increase my performance for athletes. But yeah, I use it for rehabilitation, performance, sprinting. But also I'm going to share a bit of knowledge on strength and conditioning and how actually the sprint tool can also be used for strength and conditioning, not only for its main use of sprinting or overspeed.
Fantastic. So Antheos, Adam and I both got to shake his hand in Manchester. So it's cool, kind of full circle moment on that side of the world. But Malta, for those of you who don't know, it is a little bit south of Sicily, so south of the kind of toe of the boot of Italy.
Yeah.
I just want to know what Amazon Prime one-day shipping costs to get stuff out there, because it
Yeah.
is a small little island. But Antheos doing RTP, S&C, kind of being super kind of next level and progressive with his tech. He had the first 1080 cable in Europe, and I'm assuming one of the only, if not the only, client kind of in Malta. So a mad scientist, RTP performance. Here we are between two sprints. Had to show it off. So yeah, super excited. Not only a good dude, but a super high level practitioner. So I guess we'll start with what inspired you to get some 1080 out in Malta. Kind of take us through your origin of.
Yeah. So practically, it's a funny story, but actually, so I wasn't looking for something that you can do explosive movements and with low inertia. So practically, when you have athletes, let's say football players or tennis player athletes and any sort of these athletes, most of the movements should be done with low inertia as much as possible. You don't need slack in the cable. So I was looking for a pneumatic system or a digital resistance system. And what I found out to be interesting with 1080 is that practically with one system, it can be like a whole spectrum of all the pneumatic systems that already exist. So I can use it for a core chop. I can use it for leg extensions. I'll show you how later on. I can use it, for example, sprinting. I can use it for overspeed. And the cable, it's limitless. So practically the 1080 cable, that's what I joke with my athletes, that since Malta is small, I can use the whole cable to travel with the 1080. So yeah, it's practically limitless, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can actually take it wherever you want to. So unlike a pneumatic system, which can only be implemented in a facility in a gym, it can be transported to grounds. I take it out on football fields, use it for dribbling, make the scenarios that are, let's say, a sort of pressure for the athlete. So with the load, obviously, and yeah, that obviously was a game changer. Was like, yeah, this is the right choice. I should get those, and practically that proved me right because. Apart from that, as I spoke earlier before, there's lots of data that you can get from the app. And apart from that, there's lots of modes, training modes. Like a pneumatic system, in a pneumatic system, you cannot do isokinetics, you cannot do eccentric overloads. Technically you can, but it's not that easy, You need to press the buttons, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, with the 1080, it's like you set it beforehand, the percentage overload, and then that's that. Apart from that, you can distinguish the concentric phase from the eccentric phase. I can set the speed for the concentric phase to be, let's say, 0.15, and then speed back up the eccentric phase, or do the complete opposite, which is really, really cool. And it completely distinguishes itself from other companies. And as I told you before, the capabilities of this are limitless. You can implement it in everything. And if I can describe it in one thing, it's probably limitless or game-changing.
Now, now you said a lot of nice things, and we appreciate that very much. I think the listeners are always really interested in what your day looks like and then how you're implementing things. So maybe take us through, before we went on air here, you were telling us a little more about what your day looked like. And I think maybe, you did some strength conditioning, you did some rehabs. I would love to know kind of what that looked like and how 1080 was implemented.
Yeah, so let's choose preseason, for example. Okay, so it's summer. Over here, I have loads of internationals come here, so elite football players. They come from a training camp in Malta because the beach is nice, the weather is nice, and obviously they can train at the same time. So in the gym, I use the 1080 Sprint 2 for, let's say, plyometric hops, decelerations, working on the first few steps, changes of direction, eccentric overloads, absorbing forces, perturbation, proprioception, for example, when it comes to injury prevention, or rehabs. And I also use it for isokinetics, correcting the first steps, for example, working with a block and performing the first accelerative drive, for example. And that's in the gym. On, let's say, lower body perspective side, okay? Then if I want to work with athletes, let's say tennis players, basketball players, rotative athletes, I use it for core chops, explosive chops. I use the rotational sling to make no slack while rotating the torso or putting resistance on the torso. And pulls, explosive pulls, and all that sort of stuff. That's only the 1080 Sprint. And when it comes to the 1080 cable, I use it for heavy loads. It's more in the gym, the 1080 cable, so I use it for squats, isokinetic squats. I use also hook it up to my multi-gym behind me, so it's over there. And I hook it up instead of a traditional load system. So I hook the cable to the 1080 cable. And believe it or not, I have an isokinetic dynamometry test. For example, the leg extension, I converted it. I don't know if you've seen on my videos, but I converted it to, let's say, an isokinetic test to look at the asymmetry between the left and right leg, like a traditional test. Apart from that, there's more usage to it. For example, if there's a general fitness client who wants to do some chest press but wants to have something cool apart from doing a chest press with normal resistance, you can put an isokinetic or push hypertrophy with the last 3 reps by switching to the isokinetic system, which is really cool. And then if, let's say, we take the 1080 Sprint 2 out on the football pitch, it really gets interesting. I implement lots of game scenarios. How do I do it? So, for example, when I have 4 players at a time, I hook up 1 player with the system and put pressure with the players. However, I also put overspeed on the athlete, for example, to come and receive the ball. So he needs to decelerate, think quicker where he needs to play the ball with extra pressure on the load on the pelvis, from the 1080. And then I also put game-like scenarios. For example, I hook up the resistance on him, dribble as quick as possible, and finish in the shortest time as possible. Why? I mimic that to implement game-like fatigue. Let's say you're in the final third, you have players pulling on you, and you need to finish and score, So the 1080 Sprint 2 actually does that by fatiguing out your legs with the resistance, and actually you have a cognitive drill that you need to obviously score. And practically changes of direction, shuttle runs. I even do tests with it. So practically I don't need any speed gates. Don't get me wrong, I'm a heavy valve user, but I tell them, listen, I have my 1080, I trust it, and I use it for sprint testing as well. So for example, I set out a distance, put the resistance to 1 kilo, or let's say 2 kilo, negligible amount, put on a waist belt that's pretty snug around their waist, and test also their top speeds, their shuttle runs, for example, how quick they are. And I put on a leaderboard with the app and try to get the shortest time, and everyone's fighting, and that's really, really cool. But that's practically a day in my life in preseason when using the 1080 Sprint 2 and the 1080 cable.
So I'll give your IG a shout out before it gets too late, even though we'll get to that later. But Urban Zone, on just how it sounds on Instagram to kind of visualize some of these things, and I like kind of the 3-headed approach where it was the athletic, faster stuff in the gym, 1080 Sprint 2 on the pole, which you have behind you. You have the cable for some of your heavier / more strength stuff. and then combining it with other equipment, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just a motor, a line, and data, but it's like, how can it support what you want to do? And if you believe in something a little bit more angular and you have the ability to attach it, then cool, away you go. And then we get super sports specific. If we're preparing for soccer, then how do I use data and motorized resistance to kind of support that? So my one follow-up question, quick one. So you were already pretty dialed in on like what you wanted,
Yeah.
right? Okay, well, there's these different kinds of resistance, and I want it to be portable, and I want it to do this and this and this. Being in Malta, a relatively small place, was it like, hey, this is so awesome, this is everything I need, let me just buy it? Or did you go somewhere else to kind of get your hands on it, see it first? Kind of, what was that actual acquisition process like once you discovered what it was?
Yeah, you're completely right about that. But research, speaking to other people that already own it, and having the lack, so the gap of actually testing and training, which is a complete different step over other facilities or other things. What do I mean by that? So we own all of the Valves ecosystem. We are able to test strength, to test motion, etc., neuromuscular capabilities, etc., etc., etc. But how are you able to test and train at the same time? What do I mean by that? So we all know that when there's an ACL rehabilitation, there's the triple jump test to actually assess if they're symmetrical. And what the general traditional thing is, they measure the steps. Okay, it's good. You have a good idea. But with the 1080, you can measure the steps and the wattage and power, which the wattage and power actually shows us another spectrum, So I am testing and training at the same time. I have intent, So actually that's what I got to actually purchase the systems, So I actually found power asymmetries from one limb to another, So, and actually when I put them on the force decks to do a single leg jump, as well, it confirmed that, So actually I'm training and testing at the same time and looking at other metrics that are underlooked when they're, coming for complete rehabilitation or a complete.
That's really interesting how you're going deeper. One thing that I've seen is that some people, when they do the triple hop test, are you doing like 2 kg or 3 kg load when you're looking
it's
at
according to their body weight. It's like the VDEC, Like,
okay, so you're doing okay, that's very cool. And do you do it at 3 different loads then? When you're testing it, or do you just do one load on each side?
I choose like a normative sheet for my athletes and put, for example, not too heavy, not too much, like 20 to 30% of their body weight.
Yeah.
And I do that. I look at their VDEX as well sometimes, but
nice.
When it comes to power, it's when doing hops or horizontal plane hops, it's much more of let's say 20 to 30% of their body weight. So obviously the test could be performed, and yeah, obviously taking the measurements and taking obviously the forces. And if you see, for example, some force traces that the app is capable to do, it's really interesting, especially when the force output and the power output is completely different, even if the force was, for example, in the second hop, either was it implemented, was it a high force because of momentum from the first hop?
Right.
So you get much more deeper to this stuff. So I look not only at the second and third hop, but the first hop. For example, first hop with the right, was it powerful enough for first hop with the left? And then if I see that there's, okay, the second and third hop are the same, the first hop actually determines if there was power output to go further, and they calculate the distance from the first hop to the second hop, and if, obviously dictate if it was because of momentum or because the athlete is actually powerful,
Yeah.
or ready to play.
Do you find then if somebody is not symmetrical, so you're doing that, let's say they're 20% off on their right limb compared to their left limb, what are you doing different than for training? Like, they're not ready to go back yet, right? Based on the science that exists. What are you doing then, taking that actionable data, and what would you like to do then in training to get them better?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. We use the 1080 as well. So what we do is we isolate that leg, re-isolated leg. We give a bigger dosage. Let's say we do 40-50% of their weight, and we do one hop, and we try to go as further as we can to get that accelerative burst. And then we also do the opposite thing, because as everybody knows, Newton's third law. It's simple. So the more you absorb, the more you push off. So what we do is we put the athlete further out, put the weight on, so the eccentric overload, we increase it. Let's say we'll put him on a stool on one leg, and he drops and he absorbs the force. Drops and absorbs the force in a Bulgarian split squat stance, for example. Or he drops off from a stool and he is able to absorb that pull, that horizontal plane pull, not only vertical. So it's like a diagonal pull, and he needs to absorb it. And obviously, we progress by that. And we also do 1080 step-ups. Let's say we put a plyo box in front of him. It performs a step-up. And with the cable, we can do that in a vertical plane. So not only in a horizontal plane like the 1080 Sprint 2. We set the cable underneath us, we do a step-up box, and do that on a vertical plane. And then we assess again, and obviously we see if it's better or not, But apart from that, it's a mixture of other systems as well. But to be honest with you, the 1080 caters all of that. So yeah, we do most of that.
So because you're one of the first now in the world to have, as the cable is a new product, there's a lot of confusion for people that what does the Sprint do and what the cable does.
Yeah, exactly.
In your words, I would love, because you have the experience every day. Matt and I wish we had a cable in our office too. We only have our Sprints right now. So you're ahead of us. We're waiting for ours. But maybe in your words, describe how they're different and like where the cable fits into your system. Because you talked a lot about the Sprint for plyometric and running, but some strength work, but maybe explain the difference that you see.
So yeah, the 1080 cable, to be honest with you, I use it more than the Sprint in the gym. Even though I spoke more about the Sprint, I use the cable more in the gym. So it's completely different. The speed of the cable is completely different, and the strength of the motor is completely different. I don't know if it's correct to speak on this, but let's say we compare it to a Voltra 1. Everyone knows about them, a digital resistance system, but it doesn't compare to 1080. It's stronger, it doesn't overheat, and obviously, even though it's not as portable, but it's really strong, and you can perform like heavy squats, heavy isokinetics, and that's what I practically use it for. So let's say I'm going to give you some applications. Isokinetic squats, eccentric overloaded squats, hook it up to my multi-gym doing leg extension, isokinetic leg extensions, isokinetic chest presses. I also use it as like on the pole, sliding up and down, using it for core chops, using it for assisted work as well. Let's say Nordics, and I hook it up to someone, put the eccentric overload up, and it enables him to pull him further up. And I use it as well for isokinetic pulls, especially on the pole, the pole, and for rotations on the trunk and doing isokinetic rotative trunk work, which is really cool because what I need to get the audience to actually know about this, when having a system that is able to do isokinetics, the motor system really needs to be, it's a bit of engineering, but I love it as well. The motor needs to be really smooth and really capable of, let's say, putting up and down the velocity of the cable coming out of the machine. So let's say you compare it to other digital resistance systems, the isokinetic system of the 1080, I'm gonna say it, but it's close to those 75,000 machines that they put in huge facilities and do isokinetics leg extensions to obviously get, let's say, how do you say it, like a polite form of assessment to return to play. The motors are really close to those systems. When you have something like that, you need to have it as accurate as possible and as smooth as possible, that enables you to actually putting the speed up and down of the cable. Also helps me, for example, if I have a rehabbing athlete, let's say I have a quad tear. If you do isokinetics on him, let's say a leg extension, an isokinetic leg extension, If I put, let's say, the cable on 0.15 meters per second, it's going to hurt him. It's not going to help him because the speed is so low. But if I put it to 0.18, I've changed it by a fraction, but that's already a huge improvement for the athlete. And being able to actually assess him without pain, you know? So that's what I want to actually deliver to the audience. The cable is so accurate and so tiny details that actually delves from one spectrum to another. The Sprint 2 is made for sprinting, explosive work. Yeah, I get it, but it's only up to 90 kilos isokinetic, if I'm not mistaken. The 1080 cable goes up to 100
kilos. Yeah, 70 kilo for the isokinetic. Yeah,
70 kilos. But the 1080 cable goes up to 150 kilos of eccentric overloads, and after getting 170 kilos of isokinetics.
Yeah, no, you described. I'm okay. So from a customer success, where I live on education and making sure people are using their equipment, I love this today because you were using it in all the functionality. I was going to ask you what your favorite mode was, and I don't think you have a favorite mode. I think you love eccentric overload, isokinetic, ballistic. You'll do it isotonic. Let's go do some sprinting. I love it. I mean, that was very good of what you shared today.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. And when we were in Manchester, I think you've seen me guys do it. It is also able to do an isometric mode. So you set the isokinetics all the way, speed all the way down, and you try to pull it out. It doesn't allow you to pull it even with the gear. So that's really interesting. And my favorite mode would probably be the reps mode or the quick function mode. Because
you do have one. Good. That's good to know. All right.
Nice. But one thing that I don't want to forget to mention, which is game changing, and you guys don't speak enough about it. The first 3 reps of knowing the speeds of what you put in isokinetic. So when you press on the isokinetic app function, the app tells you perform 2 to 3 reps to be able to know the speed that you dictated. No systems in the world do that. Let's say, and it's really underspoken. So it's something that, let's say I'm doing a cable core chop. What's the speed that I'm gonna put? Even though practitioners, for example, when we do a squat, we should know that it's 0.3. But or something that spectrum.
That's fine.
Yeah, when I actually tested it, I did a squat. It showed me 0.27 meters per second, which is quite close to 0.3. Which is it's amazing. So
that's awesome that you said that. No, it was a really cool feature when we put it in there. And you're right, we don't tell people enough about that. That we try to make their lives easier so you can get right into the system. So that's cool. Exactly. Matt, we took all your questions, and I know we're getting low on time, so I'm sorry. You're probably burning there for like part 2, part 3 or something.
Yeah, no, I was just like reading my totally not real sticky note in the side of my monitor with all my questions, and I was like, oh, got that. Oh, we got that. We got that.
Matt told me to prepare something in brief. I came out with nothing because obviously I know everything by heart. And I don't need anything to actually read about to speak about the system.
I don't either. I hear
you. We're just talking training, but I'll explain a little bit more about the function you're talking about, and then we'll get into the last question. But so isokinetics, right? It's a fixed concentric speed, and then you go throughout the whole range of motion at that speed. You get to make however much force you can or want at that speed. And there is a feel to it of like the speed of a shoulder external rotation is not going to be the same as like a shoulder Y, because a Y, the excursion or range of motion is way bigger. So if you're on the Sprint 2 itself or the cable itself on the actual screen, you do 2 to 3 reps. It measures the range of motion. I won't tell you guys how it calculates it, but it recommends what speed you should do based on that range of motion. Right. Exactly. So if someone doesn't know where to start, it'll kind of help you out, and then you can do it yourself. Feel, turn it up, turn it down, and kind of just pick.
But you already have, let's say, the baseline, so you can just play around with the fine increments on the screen. So because, by the way, if the audience doesn't know, it goes down by 0.01 meters per second. So that's amazing.
Super precise. So last question. I have a feeling I might know where this is going to go, but part of our audience for 1080 and between 2 sprints, part of it is users and current clients, and some of them are new users just trying to learn, or prospective users trying to learn more, right?
Yeah.
So for those that do have a 1080, because I'm sure the 1080, you learned how to use it better the more you had it, right? Like
Yeah.
no one's an expert the first day that they get it.
Of course.
It was
Of
the same
course.
with
Of
me, the
course.
same with Adam. So if you had to send the audience, those with whether it's a sprint or cable, with some homework to kind of go, do, feel, kind of try on their own, what would you recommend them to do as our expert mad scientist over in Malta?
So let's say even with the 1080 Sprint 2, what they can actually do is they uh, they can hook it up to anything and loads of attachments. Try to hook up the system with as many attachments as you have. Let's say you're a climber, you're a bouldering guy, and you have loads of attachments. Let's say with a ball, with grips, all that stuff. Put that in isokinetic, for example, and you have a complete different sensation of muscle engagement, a full muscle engagement. And let's say me as a performance coach that focus more on football or on soccer. You know the hamstring roller, the glider? It's a bodyweight exercise, right?
Yeah.
Put an ankle cuff around it and wrap it to the 1080 cable or 1080 Sprint 2. It's completely different on your hamstrings. It demolishes them. And let's say you have an athlete that hinders from eccentric load on their hamstrings. Put the concentric easy, overload the eccentric, and you already have an exercise that focuses on the eccentric work on the hamstrings. Hook it up to as much stuff as you can. That's what I can practically say to the audience. I hooked my 1080 cable to a multifunctional gym. So yeah, I have, let's say, 6, 7, 8 exercises. You ever tried an isokinetic lat pull down? It's crazy.
Jeez, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. The muscle engagement is out of this world. But yeah, that's what I can practically say to the audience. If you are able to hook it up to as many things as you can, even to existing machines that you already have. Let's say a leg press, you mount a hook to it, and you attach a carabiner or a strap to the leg press, and you perform eccentric overloaded leg press without obviously needing any weight plates. Because for some, let's say, athletes, if you do, let's say, perform a single leg press, you aren't able to surpass 150 kilos of eccentric overload. It's completely crazy, you know? So yeah, and let's say in a single leg form type of exercise. But as I told you, and apart from that, use it for testing and training, like I explained before. Not only using it for, let's say, training, do take note of the reps function. And there's actually there's a tab where you can not only see the concentric, but the eccentric. And as we were in Manchester when we had the Sportsman's Conference as well, and Jordan was speaking a lot about eccentrics and reflexive eccentrics and how you are able to break. If you switch onto the tab and, for example, do, let's say, a broad jump to a single leg breaking, or you break on a single leg, you are able to see how fast you're breaking quickly, even on the 1080 web app or the app. And that's pretty interesting. So don't only look at the concentric, but look also at the eccentric and check your breaks regarding the 1080 app and make sure that everything is aligned. And as I said before, when you want to measure something, don't only measure it with one metric, but use all of the metrics: force, power, distance. Yeah. So practically use it for everything. But
the mad scientist telling everyone to go out and be a mad scientist. So, you know, it's a line, it's a motor, and it's all these different types of resistance, but support's kind of what you want it to do. So whatever you can hook it up to safely,
yeah,
go crazy, basically. So Antheos, this was awesome. You know, our
Yeah.
second kind of time chatting, this one virtually, but the first one in person. So I want to say thank you very much for your time. Likewise,
too.
Adam. But before we go, where can people find more of the mad scientists, and how can they reach out if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so practically we're on, as you gave us a shout out, which really appreciate Urban Zone on Instagram, Urban Zone Malta, and yeah, you can easily reach me out on my profile as well, Antheos Spiteri, and LinkedIn, Instagram. But yeah, feel free to shoot any questions, any setups that how I utilize that, how I use that. So I'm happy to recommend and also recommend the loads for as well, let's say triple leg hop jumps and that stuff, because it's something that's quite new. And what actually metrics are good or not, like a normative sheet, because let's say velocities, we already know that certain speed is good, that certain speed is not. But when it comes to, let's say, horizontal plane jumping, or let's say takeoffs, what's actually a good result, According to my facility, when you do a triple leg frog jump, the highest they've got was 1,786 watts with 17 kilos of resistance, which is quite absurd. It's wrong. And the single leg, it goes to 1,100 watts. So yeah, but obviously that's from my facility. When you get obviously lots of data from around the world, it could be different. But yeah, or I can.
I'm sure there's plenty of part 2 and part 3 to go around. So I guess we'll leave on that cliffhanger. But this was awesome. Thank you again, Adam and Antheos. And until the next one.
Yeah, really appreciate your time, guys. Thanks a lot.